Hey everyone, welcome back to the 10th installment of the Speedrunner 0.8 December Mania. In the previous video, we did Pokemon Heart Gold with the Johto starters Meganium, Typhlosion, and Feraligatr. And despite the games taking a long time just because it's natural for Heart Gold, the run was still quite fun to do. Now we are moving on to the 5th generation of Pokemon. This is the most current generation of games I do solo runs in, so it'll just be this and White version 2 afterwards. Today we will be running the Unovan Legendary Trio, Reshiram, my favorite, Zekrom, and Kyurem. So this is going to be definitely an interesting run to do, especially since Gen 5 changed a lot of things from Gen 4 to make it seem more modern, such as the updated XP formula and all that kind of stuff. But with all that out of the way, let's just get straight into the run, shall we? As usual, the time starts upon loading the save file after I had the first available chance to save and edit my starter with PK Hex, so the very first battle with Cheren and Bianca do not count for the time, which is not a big deal because they were both easy one-shots anyway. Also, fun fact, the Unova starters, just in black and white, they actually lowered the XP yields in this game to make sure you didn't level up during the first two fights, so that way you can still fight Cheren at level 5. They changed this in Black 2 and White 2, so yeah, fun piece of trivia right there, just to make sure you don't level up. Anyway, for this first section of the game, we're going to be talking about everything you need to do up to the first gym. I always make the first gym a split, but I can pretty much say that the early game for all three of our contenders is mostly going to be filled with Dragon Rage spamming, because all three of our contenders' starting moveset is Dragon Rage, and then some form of Thunder, Fire, or Ice Fang. So I'm not really going to talk about those kinds of trainers too much, so that way I can spend some time talking about the stats. Reshiram has a base stat total of 680, with 100 HP, 120 attack, 100 defense, 150 special attack, 120 special defense, and 90 speed. And since we're a fire dragon type, we're only weak to ground and rock and dragon. And the rock weakness is definitely a big one because starting in Gen 5 is when they changed the sturdy ability to let you live on 1 HP no matter what move hit you, because in Gens 3 and 4, sturdy only prevented one-hit KO moves like Horndrill and Fissure and Sheer Cold. And a lot of Pokemon in this game that have sturdy, no rock moves, so that actually can be an issue. And now let's go over Reshiram's moveset. I'm going to start with Reshiram's moveset, and then I'll talk about how Reshiram does at the first gym, and then I'll move over to Zekrom, then Kyurem. As I mentioned before, we start with Dragon Rage and Fire Fang, and then via level up we get Imprison, which basically prevents the opponent from using moves that you have, so it's honestly kinda useless outside of niche competitive. And then Ancient Power, Flamethrower at level 22, which is incredible, Dragon Breath, Slash, Extra Sensory, Fusion Flare, Dragon Pulse, Imprison again, Crunch, Fire Blast, Outrage, Hyper Voice, and Blue Flare. Fusion Flare and Blue Flare are Reshiram's signature moves. Fusion Flare is 100 base power, but it becomes 200 if the opponent uses Fusion Bolt, which is Zekrom's unique move. You only really see this in vanilla if you catch the Reshiram and then N has the Zekrom, because fun fact, during the end fight, on the very first turn, he is always programmed to use the fusion move first, so that way it encourages you to use it first, and if you use it right after he does, because his Zekrom/Reshiram is a higher level so it will outspeed, not only will your base power double, but it makes a cooler animation, so just thought I'd put in that piece of trivia for you. And Blue Flare is pretty much just a slightly better Fire Blast. 10 more base power, same accuracy, 20% chance to burn, but it's all the way at level 100, so it's not going to see some use. Also, since we're a Dragon-type Pokemon, all of our contenders will have access to the tutor move Draco Meteor. Drayden, after you beat him as the 8th gym leader, will teach this move to a Dragon-type if it has high friendship, but this move is basically a clone of Overheat, because while it does deal 140 power, it lowers your special attack by 2 stages, so we're not going to use this for any of our contenders. And via TM, our notable moves are Hone Claws, Dragon Claw, Hidden Power, Sunny Day, Hyper Beam, Solar Beam, Return, Psychic, Shadow Ball, Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Rock Tomb, Flame Charge, Overheat, Focus Blast, Incinerate, Will-O-Wisp, Shadow Claw, Payback, Giga Impact, Stone Edge, Rock Slide, Dragon Tail, and Substitute. Also, just a quick note, Hone Claws is a move that raises your attack and accuracy by 1 stage, but this TM is only in the post game. That's actually the same with a lot of stat boosting TMs in this game. Hone Claws, Swords Dance, and Calm Mind are all locked in the post game. They're all given to you by the Team Plasma Sages when you help Looker try and track them down after you defeat Getsis. So yeah, we're not going to have access to any of these TMs for any playthrough. Also, something that's going to be making these runs quite slow, all 3 of our contenders are heavy Pokemon, and in this game specifically, as well as Black 2 and White 2, when you use a Pokemon that weighs over a certain amount, when they're sent out of their Pokeball, those little orange-white particles come out of them. It makes every battle slightly slower, and that adds up over the course of the run. Also, throughout this run, I'm not going to mention the rival battles too much just because there are so many rival battles. With my previous Black version videos, I used to play an intro for all of them, but I think I might actually stop that and maybe only do it for like the last one, or just the one I find the most difficult. I don't know, I'll figure it out. I'm not really doing intros for the Versus videos just because of how long they take to edit. Anyway, with Reshiram, I take out the trainers in the Dream Yard, and since I always replace Snivy, this girl right here will give me a Panpour to supposedly help with Chili, but I'm not going to be using it for Chili. This thing is going to be my Cut and Surf user. Well, here's the thing, all 3 of the elemental monkeys get Cut, but only Panpour gets Surf. So if I didn't replace Snivy, I would have to catch a different Surf user, like Audino. Yes, Audino can learn Surf, I don't know why, but it can. So now with all that stuff done and Charon defeated in the trainer school, I can enter the gym and take on the first gym leader, Chili. It doesn't matter which of the 3 gym leaders I fight, they all start with the same level 12 Lillipup. Of course, they're not going to be a problem for any of our contenders today because they are a one-shot with Dragon Rage, because Dragon Rage does a flat 40 HP of damage, and the final elemental monkey, which this one's Pansear, it is also a one-hit with Dragon Rage. And then I defeat Chili for a split of 11 minutes and 35 seconds. Okay, I get the feeling that the other 2 are going to play quite similarly, but I want to talk about movesets and stuff, so let's go over to Zekrom. Zekrom has a base stat total of 680, the same as Reshiram, but the stats are spread differently. We have 100 HP, 150 attack, 120 defense and special attack, 100 special defense, and 90 speed. And our starting moveset is Dragon Rage and Thunderfang, and our level up moveset is mostly similar to Reshiram, but just swap out some fire moves for electric moves. We get Imprison, Ancient Power, Thunderbolt, Dragon Breath, Slash, Zen Headbutt, Fusion Bolt, Dragon Claw, Imprison again, Crunch, Thunder, Outrage, Hyper Voice, and Bolt Strike. Funnily enough, Bolt Strike, even though I said that Blue Flare for Reshiram is a slightly better Fire Blast, Bolt Strike is actually better than Thunder. 20% chance to paralyze, 15 more accuracy, and 10 more power. But like I said before, this is at level 100. And the notable TMs we get for level up are Hone Claws, which we can't get, Dragon Claw, Hidden Power. I should probably mention Hidden Power. We're not getting this either. It's in the battle subway for like 24 battle points or something. We're not getting it. Rain Dance, Thunderbolt, Thunder, Return, Psychic, Shadow Ball, Rock Tomb, Focus Blast, Fling, Charge Beam, Shadow Claw, Payback, Giga Impact, Stone Edge, Volt Switch, Rock Slide, Dragon Tail, Flash Cannon, and Wild Charge. Wild Charge is basically a weaker version of Double Edge, but it can get stab damage. That's one good thing it might be for an electric type, but I don't think I use it. I do remember using it though when I did Volcarona in this game, because it was my main answer for Caracosta. With the moveset and stats out of the way, Zekrom plays the exact same as Reshiram, and I'm not sure I really need to cover Chili either because all 3 of our contenders have Dragon Rage, so both of his Pokemon are one-shots. So I'll just skip ahead to the fact that he got a split time of 10 minutes and 22 seconds. I mean, yes, that's faster than Reshiram so far, but that's probably just wild Pokemon luck. Finally, we have to talk about Kyurem. Kyurem has a slightly lower base stat total of 660 instead of 680, but we definitely have interesting stats. 125 HP, 130 in attack and special attack, 90 in the defensive stats, and 95 speed. So we're slightly faster than the other 2, but Even though our attack is not as good as the other two, like our special attack's not as good as Reshiram, attack's not as good as Zekrom, it's like just the perfect middle to where we're an offensive sweeper. Although we can't take a hit too well. That's also a problem since just like Reshiram, we're weak to rock. I've just tended to notice that rock type weaknesses are not good in Gen 5 runs because of Sturdy. Actually, I made a mistake earlier. Kyurem does not start with Ice Fang. I just made an error on the overlay, but I think I had it fixed. We start with Dragon Rage and Icy Wind. Icy Wind is kind of worse than Ice Fang though, because Ice Fang would be slightly stronger, but whatever. And then after that, we get Imprison, Ancient Power, Ice Beam, Dragon Breath, Slash, Scary Face, Glaciate, which is just a clone of Icy Wind with just 10 extra power, so it's honestly kind of a trash move. And then Dragon Pulse, Imprison again, Endeavor, Blizzard, Outrage, and Hyper Voice. Darn, no level 100 move for us today. And then our notable TMs are Hone Claws, Dragon Claw, Hail, Hidden Power, Ice Beam, Blizzard, Return, Psychic, Shadow Ball, Rock Tomb, Focus Blast, Fling, Shadow Claw, Payback, Giga Impact, Stone Edge, Rock Slide, Dragon Tail, Flash Cannon, and Rock Smash. Also, you may notice on my overlay for Kyurem that the reset counter is in a different spot. It's because in its original spot, Kyurem's wing was actually kind of blocking out the reset counter. It was getting kind of hard to see, so I moved it for this run. Fast forwarding to the Chili fight. For some reason, fast forwarding to the Chili fight, I'm actually low on Dragon Rages, so I take out the Lillipup with Icy Wind, and then I save my one Dragon Rage for the Panseer, and Kyurem gets a Chili split of 9 minutes and 42 seconds. So you know what's interesting? Kyurem is in the lead right now with Zekrom in second place, Reshiram in last. That actually kind of follows the playthrough order. I did Reshiram first, Zekrom second, then Kyurem last. So I think it might have to do with just getting warmed up, or it could have just been wild and counter luck. But it doesn't matter, I always make splits for the first gym just because it's tradition. So now for this next section of the game, we're going to head back to Zekrom for this. We're going to be talking about Lenora, Berg, and end it off with Elisa. This is what I like to call Chapter 2, the early game. So hopefully at this point, our three contenders will start playing a little bit differently. Dragon Rage in the early game is just downright broken. So I just finish up the rest of the chores I have to do in Striaton City and the Dream Yard, including getting cut, helping out the Muna and Masharna. And then you may notice when I get my C gear, it gives me the option to turn it on or off. I've mentioned this in streams and maybe other runs before, but whenever I have this thing on, there is a slight chance that when I try and save or enter certain loading zones, my game crashes. So I just have to make sure I keep it off. If I accidentally turn it on, it's not a big deal as long as I remember to turn it off quickly. So with all this stuff done, I leave Striaton City, take on this mandatory double battle, not a big deal. And then right afterwards, I have to do a battle with Charon. I'm just going to gloss over this fight because it's really not worth mentioning. He just has a Tepig and a Purloin. Although, I think I do want to mention one fact. Charon is the only trainer in the entire of the main story, as far as I'm aware, that uses held items. He doesn't use potions in battles, he gives his Pokemon Oran Berries and stuff. Bianca, though, uses potions. So then when Charon's defeated, I help him take on Team Plasma in the Wellspring Cave, and with them out of the way, this is where I like to catch 2 more HM users, and this will be it for the entirety of the run, sort of. There are only 2 encounters in here, Roggenrola and Woobat. I want Roggenrola for strength to get rare candies later, and I want Woobat to fly. Fun fact, the cut tree in the Dream Yard, that's the only spot in the entire main story where it's mandatory to use an HM move. You don't have to use Surf in this game, or Strength either. But Surf and Strength I still want for getting rare candies. Or if I want to go to optional areas, like if I wanted to go to the Mistralton Cave to get Rock Slide or something. So the Woobat is actually kind of difficult because I'm not able to damage it. So then once I catch my HM users, after saving the little girl's Pokemon from being stolen, Bianca gives me some heal balls. You know, I could have used those when I was catching my HM users, but whatever. I skip most of the trainers on this route leading up to Nakarine City. Normally with most Pokemon I want to do the training because Lenora is honestly one of the hardest early gym leaders there is because of her Watchog. But before I can go into her gym, I have to take on N again. I took him on first in Accumula Town, but all he had was a Purloin. But in this fight though, he has a P-Dove to start with. I take it out with Thunderfang. Then on the Tympole, I have to be careful not to go for Thunderfang because Tympole is a Park Ground type. And then the final Pokemon is Timber. Although that thing is a 2-hit, it goes for Bide, but luckily it has to go more than once to actually do anything. And then after that, I get Ancient Power. Ancient Power I don't think is going to be too helpful, but we get it by level up, it may come in handy. Although I think it might be helpful for the Bug Gym since they're weak to Rock, but we'll see. And then with N defeated, I can solve the puzzle in this gym and take on the second gym leader, Lenora. She leads off with a Herdier. The Herdier isn't the difficult part, it can do a lot of damage with the same type attack bonus Takedown. Plus it does have Intimidate for any physical attackers like Zekrom. I go for Ancient Power because Dragon Rage won't one-shot it, plus I was hoping for an Omni Boost which I don't get, but what makes her Watchog difficult is that the Watchog has Retaliate, which doubles in base power if the previous turn one of her Pokemon fainted. But luckily the one turn it had to attack it used Leer. It probably detected the Retaliate couldn't one-shot, so it decided to go for Leer first, but yeah, thanks for giving me the free win I guess. And then after this, Team Plasma steals a skull off a skeleton. I have to go through the Pinwheel Forest, fight a bunch of trainers here, finally get the skull back. And then I can go through the forest and get on the Sky Arrow Bridge. You know, one of the things I kinda don't like about this game, I don't have the bike yet. You don't get that till Nimbasa City, which is the 4th gym leader city. And I just do not like running through this bridge just cause it takes forever. But still, the views are nice. And then when I enter Castelia City, I go into the gym first thing, just for Charon to get out, and then Berg to come out to say that Team Plasma's been spotted in town, which apparently they've stolen Bianca's Muna. So I follow him all the way to the empty building across the street from the gym. I take out some Team Plasma grunts, hear a speech from Getsus again. Also, if you're wondering, that Pokeball right there is a smoke ball. If you hold it, it guarantees the runaway from a wild encounter. It's only really helpful if you're like hunting shinies or something, but I'm not getting that. And then with that done, before I take on Berg, I heal at the center first, and then if I wanted to, there is the Battle Company here, I can do some extra training, but Zekrom is not going to need it. The main reason I chose to heal though was because I don't have a type advantage against him, although Dragon Rage might just be enough, but you don't want to underestimate his Pokemon sometime, so let's see how he goes. He starts off with a level 21 Whirlipede. The first thing I do is go for Ancient Power, which I had 1 PP left of, don't get an Omni Boost, and just kill it with Dragon Rage. Okay, I get to level 22, and now I can learn Thunderbolt over Thunderfang. Oh boy, things are going to get nasty real quick. And I go for Thunderbolt on the Dwebble. Fun fact, in White version 2, the Dwebble has Sturdy, while in Black version it doesn't. So on Levani, I just go for 2 Dragon Rages. All it gets off is a Struggle Bug, which is a weak bug type move that lowers special attack, so yeah, that was kinda easy. You may be thinking though, wouldn't Thunderfang be better because Zekrom has higher attack than special attack? Well, theoretically you may think so. Our special attack is still 120, so that's still really good. Plus, Thunderfang has a slight chance to miss. I really don't want to deal with that. And with Berg defeated, I can take on Bianca. The Bianca and Charon fight right here after Berg, I might do intros for in my regular videos because they can be difficult. Especially since Bianca leads with Herdier who has Intimidate, but luckily I have Thunderbolt so that's not a big deal. Next up comes her Muna. I'm not too worried about it because if you get stolen by Team Plasma, you're clearly pathetic. And then next up is Duat. I go for Thunderbolt for the one-shot. And then finally is the Pansear. Yeah, this is a whole one-shot sweep. Let's see if Charon can do any better. Before I fight Charon though, you can actually go in the sand right here and enter this house for a free heal. So if you took damage during the Bianca fight, it's faster to do that than to go back to the center. Alright, so Charon leads with a Pidove to start with. Obviously this thing is not going to survive a Thunderbolt. Although one thing that can make this battle hard is the whole time you're in a sandstorm. So if you end up defeating something at like 5 HP, the sandstorm can kill you. Next up is the Pansage, which resists Thunderbolt, so I go for Dragon Rage, does not one-shot, and I get Leech Seeded. Uh-oh. Yeah, Leech Seed, I have not had a good history with this move. Next up is the Liepard. This thing likes to go for Fake Out, but at this point, I don't believe it has Fake Out yet, so one Thunderbolt does the one-shot. And also I go for Thunderbolt on the Pignite, it survives and heals with a Citrus Berry. And then it heals some more with Leech Seed, but it doesn't matter, one more Thunderbolt takes it out. So yeah, look at that. I'm only at 26 HP left by the end of this fight, so this Charon fight can be quite tricky. And then I just go through the rest of the route, avoiding what trainers I can, And then Professor Juniper here gives me Ultra Balls. You may think these are not useful because I already got my HM users. You'd actually be wrong. These Ultra Balls will come in handy. I'll tell you later when we get to it. And then as soon as I arrive in Nimbasa City, I take out some Team Plasma Grunts and get rewarded with the bike. So the first thing I do after getting the bike, I go in this building behind the Pokemon Center. I talk to this guy right here to get strength, which is honestly just so far out of the way, there's like no indication that's where you get strength. And then I head towards the Ferris wheel where I see N. We ride the Ferris wheel together. He reveals to be the king of Team Plasma, so now I've got to take him on. He leads off with a Sandile, which goes down to 2 Dragon Rages, although for this fight I actually forget to heal, so now I'm at 13 HP trapped in Sand Tomb. But luckily the Sand Tomb seems to wear off when the Sandile goes down. I one-shot the Darumaka, the Scraggy, and finally is the Sigilyph. This thing is part flying type, so it's obviously going to go down to Thunderbolt, so yeah, I should have remembered to heal. That could have gone wrong real easily. So after this, at this point, I can go take on the 4th gym leader. I go back to heal at the center, and then I talk to this guy right here in the Pokemart. He sells TMs. This is where you get the TM for return. So I get this move and teach it over in prison. So yeah, with a good physical attacker like Zekrom, this is definitely going to be a great move to have. Also, if you're wondering, won't the 4th electric gym be easy because Zekrom's an electric type and is immune to paralysis? Well, it's not immune from paralysis until Gen 6. They waited a long time to make this thing immune to stuff like Static and Thunderwave. It's honestly kinda sad. Anyway, I defeat all the trainers that are in here, ride the roller coasters, and I can fight the 4th gym leader, Elisa. She starts off with a level 25 Emolga. Also, if you're wondering what the Zekrom's Terravolt ability is, it's basically a clone of Mold Breaker. It makes the opponent's abilities not function properly. So like if the opponent has Levitate, I could use Earthquake on it. So I just start spamming Dragon Rage on the Emolga, but then Elisa hard switched into Zebstrika for some reason. It's not like it matters, the Zebstrika can't do too much to me. I try and knock it out with Ancient Power, still no Omni Boost sadly. I keep going for it on the Emolga, it lives in red health, and then a second Ancient Power knocks it out. And she's got 1 more Emolga left in red health. I'm out of Ancient Power, so I just go for 1 Dragon Rage. And I defeat Elisa with a split time of 45 minutes and 21 seconds with 0 resets still. Alright, that's pretty darn good. Let's take a look at Kyurem. Since in between the gym leaders in this game, there's just a lot of random trainers that really are not that hard. The first fight I want to talk about is the end battle outside of Lenora's gym. He sends out his Timber. I go for Icy Wind, it uses Focus Energy, and then my second Icy Wind gets a 5% miss, and then the Timber knocks me out with Low Kick. I did not expect to get a reset for this fight, because I did not save for a while, so I had to black out all the way back to Striaton City. Yeah, I cannot believe a 5% miss caused that. Yeah, that just sucks. Luckily on the second attempt I actually win because I don't miss Icy Wind, and I can head straight to Lenora. Thankfully for Kyurem, the Intimidate from Herdier won't do anything because I'm using only special moves. I do not have an ability like Reshiram or Zekrom, which is a clone of Mold Breaker. I just have Pressure, so it's pretty much useless in a solo run. And luckily during the fight, on the Herdier, I actually get an Omni Boost with Ancient Power, which made the following Watchog even easier. I do all the Team Plasma stuff in the Pinwheel Forest and eventually end up in Castelia. I do all the Team Plasma stuff in Castelia too, and I end up in Berg's gym and take him on. On his Whirlipede, I go for Dragon Rage, leaving it in red health, but 2 more Dragon Rages after a Hyper Potion knocks it out. Scratch that, put in an extra Dragon Rage because he used 2 Hyper Potions. Anyway, next comes the Dwebble. I just keep spamming Dragon Rage on everything. I get hit for Smackdown, which does super effective damage, but it doesn't really do anything. And then after the Dwebble, I now have Ice Beam over Icy Wind. So yeah, no 5% misses are going to cause more resets, or blackouts. And then the following Levani is a one-shot with Ice Beam. The following Charon and Bianca battles on Route 4 are pretty easy. For the Charon fight, I'm actually left at more HP than what Zekrom was left at. I was only left at 40 HP or so instead of 20 or so. And then I go through the rest of the route, head up to Nimbasa City, get the bike, get strength, get the TM for return and teach it over in prison. And then I actually go in the gear station. The reason I go in here is because I'm gonna take the train to Anvil Town and get a rare candy from a guy in a house. I didn't get it with Zekrom because I was gonna go get it later, or I just didn't need the rare candy. I don't remember, it's been a while since I did this run. And now that I've arrived back in Nimbasa, I take the Ferris wheel with N and challenge him to a battle. This time though, I don't take any damage from the fight because I actually remembered to heal, so I have no close calls with him today, and I can head straight to Elisa. I have an indirect type advantage here because Elisa has 2 Emolgas, they're both part flying type, and the flying type is weak to Ice Beam. So I one-shot the first Emolga, level up to level 28, and then she sends out her second Emolga just to meet the same fate. Alright, let's see how the Zebstrika goes. It outspeeds and goes for Flame Charge, but luckily due to my Dragon typing I only take neutral damage, plus it really doesn't deal that much damage anyway, surprisingly. And then I just keep spamming Ice Beam, and I eventually froze the Zebstrika, and Kyurem gets an Elisa split of 48 minutes and 43 seconds. Alright, now we've got Reshiram. In Nackarine City, if you talk to this one girl in one of the buildings, she asks you which starter you started with. I lie to her and say I started with Tepig, and she gives me a Charcoal. The Charcoal will give a 20% boost to fire attack, which I actually equipped to Reshiram, although I forgot to update it on my overlay for quite a bit. Yeah, this is the problem when you don't have Game Hook for this game yet. I hope to one day, but I can't say when. And also, inside Lenora's gym, something quite weird happens. I go for Dragon Rage on this one trainer's Patrat, my accuracy gets lowered, and I keep missing my moves. I get hit with Crunch, I'm taking more and more damage, I miss more Fire Fangs after Fire Fang. It keeps going for Detect 2 to make it even worse. So then I just go for Dragon Rage, it misses, and this Patrat actually knocks out Reshiram. So I'm like, okay, I haven't saved, I need to black out. But then I tried just spamming Scratch on it because I thought the Patrat would just knock me out, but it left me on 9 HP left, and I actually defeated. So at this point, I did not know what to do. I should have spammed Leer. I don't know why I was default spamming Scratch. I actually figured like it would have just knocked me out in one turn anyway, so what difference did it make? So what I decided to do was actually count that as a reset and just head back to the center. I know I actually didn't reset the game, but I felt like that was fair because I did not want to waste 25 minutes and do a new run. I'll just have to pay attention to what move I spam next time. Anyway, the rest of the gyms has no problems, including Lenora herself. I'm still in green health for her, so yeah, for all 3 of our contenders, Lenora was not hard. Since I got a tiny bit of extra training compared to the other 2, I actually got Flamethrower before the Berg fight, not during the fight, like with Ice Beam with Kyurem and Thunderbolt with Zekrom. Flamethrower just one-shots everything on Berg's team, from the Whirlipede to the Dwebble, all the way to the Levani, which takes 4 times damage. So yeah, that was really easy. The Charon fight on Route 4 though did prove to be kinda tricky because I was starting to get pretty darn low on health, but luckily I still win. I get the rare candy from Anvil Town, and then before I do Elisa, I get the feeling that I wasn't gonna do that good against her. So I actually went east towards Route 16 to do a tiny bit of training. And then after that, I head into the Pokemon Musical just to do the tutorial because this part is mandatory because it leads to some story events with Bianca and stuff. See, I just decided to just get that out of the way while I was passing by. Now we can talk about the Elisa battle. I one-shot her first Emolga with Flamethrower. I level up to level 29 where I can learn Dragon Breath, which I immediately teach over Dragon Rage because after this gym, Dragon Rage just is not useful anymore. So then on the second Emolga, I knock it out with one Flamethrower. Will Zebstrika meet the same fate? It outspeeds with Quick Attack, and yes, I do one-shot it. And Reshiram gets a split of 54 minutes and 34 seconds. Okay, at this point, Zekrom has now taken a 3-minute lead, with Kyurem in second place and Reshiram in last. Kyurem definitely suffered some time loss from that one blackout against N, and Reshiram definitely suffered with that Lenora random trainer blackout. But yeah, I think at this point, I think in the early game, Zekrom definitely had the advantage because it was able to utilize its physical attack with its moves like Return and Thunderfang, while the other 2 had to rely on not so good stats, but I think it's still too early to tell. The early game of Unova in this game is quite linear, especially the mid to late game. Usually where things diverge is when you're preparing for the Elite Four and in Getsus, but that's for the future. The next section of the game, we're going to be going over Clay, Skyla, and then we're going to go all the way to Bryson and then Drayden. Just the final rest of the gym leaders, just because of how linear this has been. This is what I like to call Chapter 3, the mid-game. Since we've already started with Zekrom and Reshiram, let's start with Kyurem this time. As soon as I leave Nimbasa City, Charon challenges me to a battle. This battle is going to be easier than the one on Route 4 because there's no consistent Sandstorm chip damage. And then right afterwards, I have to do a multi-battle with Charon against some preschoolers, which was pretty easy. And then we cross the Driftfell Bridge and get into Driftfell City. Before I do anything else, I go into the market right here to get an Expert Belt. You can only get this if your lead Pokemon's over level 30, which it almost always is. And then I can go right over here and buy a dozen Moo Moo Milks. Moo Moo Milks are very cheap hyper potions. They heal 100 HP. They only cost like 500 Pokédollars a bottle too, so it's a really good deal. And then I head on south to the cold storage. I get a hidden ether right here. This is actually the first available ether / elixir type of thing I'm actually able to pick up. For some reason in the Gen 5 games, there's just a lot of gap in between where you can actually pick up elixirs. Remember in Red and Blue you can get like 5 elixirs before the Elite Four? Yeah, that really doesn't happen in almost any other game. And then I get to the end of the cold storage, take out a ton of Team Plasma Grunts, and then Clay comes in to arrest them just to release them to Getsus for no reason. Like, dude, what the heck? And then after that, I can head inside his gym and take on Clay. Kyurem has a type advantage here because ground is weak to ice, but a lot of ground types have rock moves, and I am weak to rock, so let's see how this goes. He leads off with his level 29 Krokorok, which is a one-shot with Ice Beam. Fun fact, in White version 2, that thing has Intimidate, while in this game it has Moxie. Next up is Excadrill. It is a 2-hit with Ice Beam, but all it gets off is Bulldoze. Bulldoze is a weak ground type move that lowers speed. Not really that useful. Although I would like to mention, even though with moves like Earthquake and Magnitude it can hit you when you're underground with Dig, Bulldoze cannot. And I've looked this up. This is the same in current games. Bulldoze cannot hit Pokemon underground, which I view kind of funny. So I defeat Clay real easily. And then I go into the Pokemon Center. At this point, I like to buy my Max Repels for the rest of the run, as well as any Hyper Potions if I need it. And next up, I have to take on Bianca again. I really don't want to mention this fight besides the fact that her Muna's evolved into Musharna, but that doesn't really make it any better. Although it does try and be a troll with hypnosis and stuff. I go through Route 6, I pass this little Weather Institute thing. There's also a hidden elixir in this grass, although I think I forgot to pick it up. Oops. And then I head on over to Chargestone Cave. Clay gets rid of the little electric web that's in the way. And then inside of this cave is when I can actually get the Lucky Egg. I'm going to equip this with all 3 of our contenders. I pretty much equip this for every single run I do. This boosts my XP by 50%, which is a good thing because oftentimes for the final N Getsus battle, you have to be in the mid-70s on average, so this is going to be a good thing to have, especially since all of our contenders are in the slow XP group. And then in the deep parts of Chargestone Cave, I have to take on a bunch of Team Plasma Grunts. And then before I finish, I actually go down these stairs right here. If you're able to pass by this Ace Trainer right here, you can actually pick up a hidden rare candy. I do need rare candies for the end of the run. Even though this one's a bit out of the way, it's faster to just get it while you're here. And then at the very end of all the Team Plasma stuff, I have to fight N. He leads off with a Boldore, which is kinda scary because it does have Sturdy. I go for Dragon Breath, it lives on 1 HP, and it just wastes its 1 turn with Iron Defense. So I just finish it off with Ancient Power, don't get an Omni Boost. Next up is Ferroseed. I just use 1 Ancient Power by mistake, hoping for Omni Boost, I don't get it. So then I just start spamming Return, and then I decided on Dragon Breath. Yeah, I couldn't make up my mind there. And then on the Clink, I 2-shot it with Dragon Breath. I get 23 HP remaining because it went with Gear Grind. And finally is the Joltik. I really don't need to worry about the Joltik. 1 Ice Beam destroys it, but yeah, this fight could have gone real bad. So then with N defeated, I can leave the cave and enter Mistralton City. So before I can take on Skyla, I have to go north through Route 7 and enter the Celestic Tower. I have to go all the way to the top and ring the bell. Which is what you guys should totally do, by the way. I'm sorry I had to do it. Although something I want to show you for your troubles, if you go to the next couple of floors, in this game there's a glitch. These guys are supposed to be spinners, but they weren't coded properly. When you press B, they all change direction. you can use that to completely avoid the trainers in here. I actually allow that glitch for 2 reasons. 1, it's funny, and 2, that'd be impossible to avoid on your own playthroughs. You would basically be banned from using your running shoes. So yeah, I feel like it's better to just allow it. And then at the very end, there's a little nurse here. I take her out, and then she heals my team for free. And then I avoid the next floor of trainers. I get to the top, ring the bell, and then I can fly back to Miss Stralton City, go through her gym. Ow! How has OSHA not shut down this gym by now? And then I can take on the 6th gym leader, Skyla. She leads off with her level 33 Swoobat. I go for Ancient Power, it crits but no Omni Boost. I would have preferred the Omni Boost, but whatever. Next up is the Unpheasant. I go for Ancient Power for the 1-shot. No Omni Boost, although I don't think it's really necessary at this point. Because I go for Ancient Power, the Swanna lives in yellow health, it heals a bit with Aqua Ring, it puts it out of heal range, and I can defeat Skyla at level 41. Alright, that's good. So now I can go back through Route 7 and head my way up to Twist Mountain, but then Charon stops me for a battle. Charon, in my opinion, is the tougher rival compared to Bianca just because of his use of held items. At this point, he gives his Pokemon unique held items like the Choice Specs. And I think in later fights, his Pignite gets the Leftovers item. Actually, it has it in this fight, starting this fight. Yeah, he has Leftovers. I actually looked up where to get Leftovers in this game. You can only get it in the post-game in the Village Bridge. So yeah, Charon's cheating. So for that, I take out his whole team in a series of 1 to 2 shots. And then afterwards, Alder gives me the HM for Surf. At this point, if I wanted to, I can backtrack to go get rare candies, but I like to save that for last. So then I just enter Twist Mountain, talk to Clay for a bit, and I exit this little entrance right here to get into the inner pit. Although I struggle with the bike. Here's the thing though, the reason I want to play this game during a winter month, which is April, August, and December, it's because with the snow here, I can skip so many trainers, get a free rare candy, and if I want to, I could get the TM for Substitute, but I don't get it with any of our contenders today. At least I don't think so. And then I make it all the way to the end and get to Icarus City. So now that I'm in Icarus, I can go inside the next gym. Man, we're already at the 7th gym already. This is the Ice-type gym, so even though all 3 of our contenders are Dragon-type, only Zekrom is weak to Ice, the other 2 are neutral. Also, there's another fun glitch you can do in this gym. This little rock right here before the last mandatory trainer literally has no collision data coded into it, so you can just walk through it and skip the last trainer. I allow this too just because this is how the game was coded. And besides, all it does is skip 1 trainer, so like what difference does it make? And besides, it's funny. So now let's take on the 7th gym leader, Bryson. Bryson is honestly one of the worst gym leaders in this game. I kind of view him similar to Price, because all 3 of his Pokemon are pure Ice types, they don't have good moves. If you have a simple fire attack, or any other kind of attack, you can easily just destroy his team. But when I get to the Beartic, it uses Swagger on me, which I use to my advantage to give me extra damage on my return. So then I defeat his Beartic, and then I one-shot his Cryogonal. And I just completely destroyed this whole gym and get the Icicle badge. So now at this point, there's even more Team Plasma stuff. Woohoo! But you know what, I'm not going to complain too much because due to the abundance of them with Watchhogs and stuff, at least they can be good training with the Lucky Egg. There is one item I want to note in here. You can actually get a Max Elixir in here, which I do use for the Elite Four. It's right here, just before the group of 4 Team Plasma Grunts that surround you on all sides. And then I get to the very top, and has woken up Zekrom. It's okay, I'll get to Zekrom in a little bit. So now at this point, this is where the HM for Fly would come in handy, because now I have to fly back to Nimbasa City and head on over to the Desert Resort. This is an optional area in the early game, so I just come back later when it's required, but I go to this southern area right here, get a free rare candy, before I head into the Relic Castle. When I enter the Relic Castle, I defeat a bunch of Team Plasma Grunts. There's also the TM for Shadow Ball in here too if I want it. And then once I head all the way to the bottom, I listen to Getsus give a speech with Alder. And then next up, I have to fly to Nakarine City, get the Light Stone from Lenora. So now at this point, that's all the story stuff done. But I don't fly back yet. I head on over towards the Pinwheel Forest. I have this nurse heal my Pokemon for me. And then I head through the forest to get to this little secluded area right here and get a free rare candy. You're not given access to this area unless you have 7 badges, I believe. And then with that rare candy obtained, I fly to Accumulate Town, go to Route 2. There's a little strength boulder right here, you may have seen it earlier in the video. Yeah, there's a rare candy here. And then next up, I fly to Striaton City. And then if you go into this water right here, there is actually a hidden rare candy in the grass. With all those rare candies obtained, I can go east from Icarus Town to Route 8. This is the winter, so these routes are kind of frozen over, which is actually a good thing because during every other season, there's wild Pokemon on these routes. And then I head on over to the Two Blind Bridge. But before I get on there, I have to battle Bianca for the last time in this run. At least with this Pokemon, that is. She leads off with Stoutland, which has Intimidate. I go for Return, which does less than half. I really should have just gone for Ice Beam. I go for Ice Beam on the second attack though. Next up is the Samurott at level 40. I go for Return, does less than half. I gotta stop going for Return after that Intimidate, but I don't think it really matters. Dragon Breath does the same amount. Plus the Samurott has Revenge, which can do pretty decent damage to me. But luckily Dragon Breath caused Paralysis, so I can get to level 50 and move on. At this point I could learn Glaciate, but this is literally just a clone of Icy Wind with 5 extra power, so no. I defeat the Simisear and the Musharna, and that's the end of Bianca. So then I just go through the Two Blind Bridge and then through Route 9. On this route here, there is the Shopping Mall 9. I know, clever name. If I want to, I could buy vitamins with all my money. I've actually looked at what my stats would be around this point in terms of EV spreads. You could easily have enough money to get like 5 vitamins for whatever stat you want. So I could go do it with all the money I have, but I just don't need any vitamins. So then as soon as I arrive in Opelucid City, I listen to another Ghetsis speech, listen to another speech from Drayden and Iris, and now I can take on the 8th gym, which is the Dragon type gym. There are a lot of mandatory trainers in here, and the gym puzzle takes quite a long time to solve. This is like a 5-minute gym. But however though, the training is actually pretty darn good. And then once I get to the end, I can take on the 8th gym leader, Drayden. If I was doing white version, this would be Iris. The only difference between the two teams, Iris's Pokemon are all female, and her Druddigon doesn't have rough skin. But anyways, on Drayden, his Fracture is a one-hit with Ice Beam. Then the Druddigon, I knock it out with a single use of Dragon Pulse, which I learned at level 57 over Dragon Breath. And then on the Haxorus, I go for 1 Dragon Breath, knocking it out. I get to level 59. And Kyurem gets all 8 badges with a split time of 1 hour, 47 minutes, and 2 seconds. Alright, now let's check out the other two. Let's go to Reshiram. For Reshiram, let's just skip ahead straight to Clay. I am weak to both rock and ground, so let's see how this goes. I knock out the first Krokorok with Flamethrower. The Excadrill is weak to fire, so I guess in a way fire types have an advantage here, but not really. I don't know, it's kind of weird. And then finally is his Palpitoad, which Flamethrower is not going to be a one-hit. It leaves it in red health, and I get hit with Bulldoze, lowering my speed. Clay uses a Hyper Potion, but can I still outspeed? Yes, I do, after a Hyper Potion, so yeah, if my speed was slightly lower, the Palpitoad could have gotten an extra hit on me. It could have used Muddy Water or Bulldoze or something. So yeah, it's a good thing I had just enough speed. When I'm in Chargestone Cave fighting the Team Plasma Grunts, I actually catch a Boldore. At this moment, I realized I forgot to catch a Roggenrola in the Wellspring Cave. Either that or I ran out of Pokeballs on the Woobat, I don't remember, so I have to catch one now. I have no problems with the end fight in Chargestone Cave, and then when I get past Mistralton onto Route 7, as I'm heading to the Celestic Tower, I accidentally talk to this one trainer here who's a mandatory rotation battle. These battles take a long time to do in Gen 5 because all of your HM users just get a crap ton of experience since they're such low leveled, so yeah, this was a time waste. I gotta be careful with these guys. Especially in a few days when I go in White version 2, those guys are just everywhere. Anyway, I clear out the Celestic Tower, head my way back to Mistralton, and take on Skyla. I do something actually kind of interesting with Reshiram. You may notice at the start of the battle, I have 6 Pokemon in my inventory. When I was going back to catch my Fly user, I also just caught some random other Pokemon like Blitzel. The main reason I did this, I used the Ultra Balls that Professor Juniper gave me before the 4th gym. At the end of the game, when you're forced to catch the Reshiram, it'll force put it in your party into slot 1. So what I have to do is make sure I have a full party of 6. So technically my whole team is not really filled with HM users. The other 2 Pokemon are there just to take up space. But anyway, as I was discussing that, I already beat Skyla. Anyway, let's see how Bryson goes. Before I take on Bryson, I'm flying around getting some rare candies. I actually go into the deep parts of Wellspring Cave. It's really dark down here. but here I can get the TM for Focus Blast. I will need this move for later in the run. Yeah, this was just a complete series of one-shots with Bryson. This is what happens when you're running with a fire type. I remember doing this with Charizard and Volcarona. This guy was just a breeze. I'm surprised me using Flamethrower didn't burn his whole gym down and just melt the place. I'm surprised. I do the Team Plasma stuff after this in the Dragon Spiral Tower and in the Relic Castle, and while I'm doing this, I now have the move Fusion Flare on my moveset. I didn't replace Flamethrower just because Fusion Flare doesn't have as much power points as Flamethrower. I also have Dragon Pulse now, which I learned at level 54. I also have Extra Sensory as well, which I learned at level 43. Yeah, I just have a lot of different moves now. I may have forgotten to mention them when I learned them, but there you go. Alright, with all the Team Plasma stuff done, why don't we skip ahead to the final gym leader, Drayden. I think all three of our contenders are going to have a very similar Drayden battle. All three of them get the move Dragon Pulse, although for Zekrom I think I might use Dragon Claw due to the higher attack, but whatever. Drayden is just going to be a series of one-shots, and then Reshiram beats Drayden with a split time of 2 hours, 2 minutes, and 21 seconds. Yeah, going back for the HM users, I definitely played Reshiram quite bad. At the moment, I was really debating whether to do a new Reshiram playthrough, but I was really falling behind on schedule. I really did not like my favorite Pokemon doing this bad, but one of my first redos of Black version will definitely be with Reshiram, so we'll redo it eventually, but for now, we're going to have to stick to these results. Let's head on over to Zekrom. I am actually kind of concerned with how this gym's going to go for Zekrom because I'm not going to be able to use my powerful Thunderbolts on his team, so let's see how this goes. On his Krokorok, I start off with an Ancient Power, hoping for an Omni Boost. I keep going for it, but then the Krokorok just uses Swagger on me, so I'm like, this is about good enough. But then I eventually hit myself in Confusion, get hit with Crunch, and I can move on with 10 HP left. Uh-oh. And then unfortunately, I couldn't use Return on the Palpitoad because the Krokorok used Torment, so I couldn't use moves twice in a row, and Zekrom gets his first reset. You know what's weird? I just noticed this just now. Back when I did the Pearl video, a bunch of different gym leaders' Pokemon had Swagger. Same thing with Black version, although in Platinum and White version 2, none of those trainers have Swagger on their moveset. What is it with the first version of a region? The gym leaders just have Swagger, I don't understand. Anyway, I get another reset on the Krokorok due to bad Confusion luck. How I basically want to do this fight, I want to get hit with Swagger or get an Omni Boost, and then I can just sweep his whole team. On the third attempt though, I make it all the way to the Excadrill, and Rock Slide keeps flinching me, and then the Excadrill finishes me off with Bulldoze. The winning attempt actually takes quite a while. I end up having an Oran Berry held just to heal a tiny bit of extra HP. It takes me a while to win though. It takes me until 7 resets into the run, where on the Krokorok I get an Omni Boost, and then I make it all the way to his Excadrill, Return is doing quite decent damage, and I can finally win against Clay. Man, you know, I really should have gotten an extra couple levels or something. Or if I could find a Pokemon Ranger that gives a Persim Berry, maybe I could have just fished for a Swagger and not have to worry about the Confusion luck, but oh well, that's a problem for another day. Skipping ahead all the way to Skyla. I don't think I need to mention how this goes, but I've got Thunderbolt. It one-shots the Swoobat, it one-shots the Unpheasant, and the Swanna is 4 times weak to it, so yeah. Also, when I arrive in Icarus, I just realized when I was in the Celestic Tower, I forgot to get the TM for Shadow Claw. I'm going to be using Shadow Claw for the Elite Four later in the run, so I just went back to get it while I was here. And then I can go to the top of the tower, and then fly back to Icarus and take on Bryson. Okay, Zekrom is the only one of the 3 actually weak to Ice, so let's see how this goes. I think it's still going to be an easy sweep, but you never know. Bryson leads off with his Vanillish. The first move I go for is Thunderbolt, which does the one-shot. Okay, so far so good. Next up is the Beartic. This thing does have Swagger. It survives a Thunderbolt, but just chooses Icicle Crash, doing like a third of my health. And then a second Thunderbolt takes it out. I level up to level 46. And last up is his Cryogonal. I switch on over to Ancient Power. It does less than half. I get hit with Aurora Beam, luckily no attack drop. And then a second Thunderbolt finishes it off. So Zekrom did struggle the most, but that's just because it actually got below half health. The other 2, I think, still had near full HP. I take care of all the Team Plasma stuff in the Dragon Spiral Tower, the Relic Castle, I finish off Bianca, and I head on over to Opalucid City. And at this point, I have now hit level 50 and I now have Fusion Bolt on my moveset. Like with Reshiram, I'm keeping Thunderbolt as well just for the extra power points. And then before I take on Drayden, I go around the region, and thanks to having Fly, Strength, and Surf, I'm able to get all the extra rare candies, including the one in Anvil Town since I forgot to get it until now. Cause at this point, since I am weak to Dragon and my best Dragon type move is Dragon Breath at the moment, I use all of my rare candies at this point, so now I have access to Dragon Claw. Not only is the base power higher, but it uses my higher attack stat too. And when I get to Drayden, I knock out his Fracture, next up is his Druddigan, I one-shot it, it has Rough Skin. Remember, if I was doing white version, Iris's Druddigan has Sheer Force instead of Rough Skin. That's basically the only difference besides the fact that the genders are switched. And then the Haxorus goes down, and Zekrom has defeated all 8 gym leaders with a split time of 1:53:50. Okay, the place positionings have really not changed because they've all played quite similarly, although Zekrom had a lot of resets on Clay, and Reshiram had to do backtracking to get HM users. Kyurem is still in the lead, Zekrom is in second place, and Reshiram is already past the 2-hour mark. Yeah, I'm not sure how Reshiram can really improve from here, but even if I did fix that HM user luck, as well as that one reset in Lenora's gym, I'm not so sure this thing would be in first place right now. I think Kyurem is doing better not only because of slight optimizations from playing it last, I think it might be that Ice is just a better offensive typing than Fire or Electric. Like Kyurem is able to one-shot things where some other Pokemon for the other two were 2-shots. That's my theory at least. So anyway, now we are heading on to the next chapter. We are going to be taking on the final Charon battle, go through Victory Road, and then take on the Elite Four. I'm not going to talk about Energetsis right afterwards, because that's going to be a separate chapter. This is what I like to call Chapter 4, the Elite Four. Get it? Alright, starting with Reshiram, I get out of Drayden's gym, Professor Juniper gives me a Master Ball, which I will use to catch the Reshiram later, and at this point, if I hadn't already, I can go in the grass and catch 2 extra Pokemon with my Ultra Balls just to fill up my party, but I already did that with Reshiram earlier, so there's no need to do it. I encounter an extra Spinner before Charon, so now let's see how the final battle with him goes. He leads off with a level 43 Unpheasant. Yeah, the level curve in Black and White 1 really isn't that good because the levels kind of go up pretty slowly. It's kind of like the first half of Johto. I knock out the Unpheasant in one hit, and then the Emboar goes down in one hit. Although I think the XP formula change makes it better than Crystal, because the higher level you get, the less XP you earn, so you're purposefully kept at a lower level. I don't know, I'm just thinking stuff out of my left butt. But anyway, during that whole time, I just completely destroyed Charon, so yeah, that fight was barely worth commenting over. So now at this point, I can head over here to the little badge checking gates. I really liked this when I played these games casually, but when I have to do solo runs, I liked these badge gates when I did it casually, but when I have to do solo speedruns of these, like, it's just annoying. These badge gates just take quite a while to go through. It's kind of annoying. It's only like 30 seconds, but it feels like 5 minutes. And then at the very end, I can enter Victory Road. Fun fact, this one trainer right here with the Whimsicott and Substrika, she is the only mandatory trainer in the whole entire Victory Road. Although there are a couple of spinners, but if you're able to avoid them, she's the only mandatory one. Anyway, I go through the rest of Victory Road quite easily. There is a rare candy in here if I want it. There's also the TM for Dragon Claw. Although for Reshiram, I don't think I get either of those. And then I enter the Pokemon League, heal at the center, buy some full restores, and at this point, I can enter here and take on the Elite Four. I'm not going to call them the final 4 trainers because there is an Energetsis afterwards. I don't want to talk about this section yet though, I'm going to let the other 2 catch up. With Zekrom, I need to catch 2 Pokemon to fill up my party. This grass on Route 10 has some static fungus encounters, so I use these guys to fill up my party. And then Zekrom completely destroys Charon, and then I can enter Victory Road. I do encounter an optional trainer by mistake, but it's not that big a deal. And then with Zekrom, I don't get the TM for Dragon Claw because I get it by level up. If I didn't get it by level up, I would have gotten it. I skip the rare candy, and I enter the Pokemon League, heal at the center, buy some full restores, and now I can enter the Elite Four chambers. But first, we gotta let Kyurem catch up, and then we can talk about the Elite Four. With Kyurem, I catch my 2 Pokemon. I catch an Audino from some rustling grass just because I happened to run into it, as well as a second Fungus. The final Cheren battle did put up somewhat of a fight because I'm only neutral to fire attacks from the Emboar, but I'm still above half health, so it's not that bad. And now with Victory Road behind us, all 3 of our contenders can take on the Elite Four. Let's do this shit. For Reshiram, the first Elite Four member I take on is Chantal, the user of Ghost types. She leads off with a level 48 Cofagrigus. I go for Flamethrower, luckily finishing it off in 1 hit, which is kind of surprising. That thing is usually pretty bulky. Then on the Golurk, I go for another Flamethrower, it goes down in 1 hit as well. I wasn't sure if it would, I was considering whether to use Fusion Flare, but doesn't matter. And next up is the Jellicent. I use Dragon Pulse on it, and then it activates its ability Cursed Body, which disables my Dragon Pulse. Luckily I've got Extra Sensory as a backup. Cursed Body only has a 1 in 3rd chance of activating upon any move that hits it, so the Jellicent is quite a troll to face. And then the final Chandelure is just a 2-hit with Extra Sensory. I think it has Flash Fire, but even if it did, it resists fire, why would I use a fire move? Next up is the Dark-type Elite Four member Grimsley. I no longer have my Lucky Egg equipped because I don't need any more experience, so now I just have the Charcoal to boost fire moves by 20%. I knock out his lead Scrafty in 1 single hit. Next up is the Crocodile. It has Intimidate, which would be a problem for physical attackers, but Reshiram is not a physical attacker, although I think Fusion Flare is a physical, no, Fusion Flare is special. Anyway, Liepard is a 1-shot with Flamethrower, and finally is the Bisharp. Bisharp is a Steel type, weak to fire, so you can see how that goes. The third Elite Four member I take on is Caitlyn. Huh, funny, I actually do them left to right. If I don't struggle with anybody specific in the league, I just do them left to right, because Marshall usually by default is the hardest. Anyways, on the Reunique list, it goes down to 1 Flamethrower. Next up is the Sigilyph. 1 Flamethrower takes it out too. Is there anything that's going to survive a hit? On the Musharna, it actually does survive a Flamethrower and gets burned, which activates Synchronize, but you can't burn a fire type, so it does nothing. And then Caitlyn uses a full restore, but my next attack takes it out, as well as the Gothitelle. Finally is the Fighting type Elite Four member, Marshall. The main reason he's tough is because his Sock has Sturdy, so it will always get off a hit on you, and if you're weak to rock moves like Reshiram, that Sock has Stone Edge. So yeah, let's see how this goes. He leads off with his Throw though. The Throw is actually very defensive both physically and specially, so I go for Fusion Flare instead of Flamethrower, which knocks it out in 1 hit. Alright, now's the Sock. I go for Fusion Flare, and it actually goes down in 1 hit. You want to know what happened? Turbo Blaze. Reshiram's Turbo Blaze and Zekrum's Terravolt are clones of Mold Breaker, so Sturdy does not work against these two. So Reshiram did not need to worry about the Sock. And then on the Conkeldurr, it goes down to 1 Fusion Flare, and his final Pokemon is just a Mienshao. I go for 1 Flamethrower, finishing it off, and Reshiram has finished off the Elite Four. Before we can talk about the final N and Ghetsis battles, we have to talk about the other 2. Zekrom starts off with Chantal as well. I do have Shadow Claw, but I guess I forgot to teach it here. I misclick and go for Return on the Cofagrigus, so which does nothing, and it doesn't go down to 1 Thunderbolt because Zekrom's physical attack is better, so now I'm consistently burned for this fight. I decided not to deal with it and just reset right away. I get 1 more reset because I accidentally go in the Chantal fight without teaching Shadow Claw. But on the 3rd attempt, I finally remember to teach the thing. I go for Shadow Claw and it activates Cofagrigus' Mummy. It basically just deletes your ability. So now I no longer have Terravolt. So if Chantal had something with Sturdy, Sturdy would activate, but I don't need to worry about that. Next up, I fight Grimsley. The Scrafty does not go down with 1 return, so I switch over to Dragon Claw. I should probably use Dragon Claw by default, because if you include the same type attack bonus, Dragon Claw does do more damage than return. On the Crocodile, it has Intimidate. I'm not able to knock it out in 1 hit, and it goes for Earthquake, doing quite a bit of damage. This isn't looking good so far, but luckily after a few more attacks I'm able to knock it out. I level up to level 62. Next up is the Bisharp. The only move I have that's good against it is Fusion Bolt, but unfortunately due to the Intimidate, it's going to be a 2-hit, so now I'm at 72 HP. And then finally is the Liepard. It goes for Fake Out doing a small amount of damage, which is basically just a time waste, and then luckily one Fusion Bolt takes it out. So yeah, Grimsley definitely proved to be difficult, but luckily I still won. Next up is the Psychic member Caitlyn. This is what I also wanted Shadow Claw for. Shadow Claw one-shots the Reunicelus, the Sigilyph, the Musharna, and then on the Gothitelle, it actually lives at 1 HP left, and then Caitlyn's able to use a full restore, but the second Shadow Claw knocks it out. Alright, let's see how Martial goes. I don't think Martial's going to be difficult at all, especially since Terra Volt will prevent Sturdy from working. On the throw, I go for Fusion Bolt. Luckily it doesn't live, which Grimsley's Pokemon seem to like living on one hit. And then on the Sock, one Fusion Bolt takes it out. Will Fusion Bolt take out the Conkeldurr too? Yes, it does. And then the final Mienshao is quite weak defensively. It's mainly just a glass cannon, so one Fusion Bolt destroys it. Alright, we just have Kyurem left. With Kyurem, instead of Shadow Claw, I went in the Relic Castle while I was there, and I have taught the move Shadow Ball. Unfortunately, on the Cofagrigus, it is able to survive at like very low HP because its special attack is not as good as Reshiram's. It might have been a range though, because the next one takes it out. Next up is the Golurk. I misclick and go for Return stupidly. I meant to go for Ice Beam. One Ice Beam takes it out. Next up is the Chandelure. Don't misclick for Ice Beam. Luckily I don't. I go for Shadow Ball. It lives in red health, and then it hits me with a Fire Blast, leaving me at 61 HP left. So now I just go for Dragon Pulse because I'm running low on Shadow Balls. Finally is the Jellicent. I go for Shadow Ball. It does over half. Luckily Cursed Body doesn't activate, and then it hits me with Shadow Ball, leaving me at 24 HP left. So yeah, that was honestly kind of a difficult first Elite Four member. Next up, I face Grimsley. He starts off with his Scrafty. Ice Beam leaves it in red health, and then the Scrafty crits me with Brick Break, doing almost exactly half of my damage. And then I just go for Return, which knocks it out. And then I level up to level 62. This fight's honestly getting kind of concerning, but luckily the Crocodile will be a one-shot with Ice Beam. And then next up is the Bisharp. I go for Dragon Pulse. Even though it's not very effective, it was pretty much the best move I got, but luckily Dragon Pulse did just enough damage to do the 2-hit. And finally is the Liepard. It goes for Fake Out like usual, and then when I land a Return, it does red health, and then on the Liepard, it goes for Fake Out like usual. I go for Return, it leaves it in red health. I should have just gone for Ice Beam, but I just forgot the Intimidate earlier. And then Kyurem, just like Chantal, is left in red health. So yeah, Kyurem is definitely starting to suffer from his lower defensive stats compared to the other two. Then on Caitlyn, on the Reunicelus, I go for Return. It hits me with Focus Blast, doing around half my health, and then I knock out the Reunicelus. I get to level 63. Next up is the Sigilyph. Obviously, this thing will be a one-shot with Ice Beam, like usual. And then next up is the Musharna. I go for Ice Beam, doing over half, and then I get a lucky Freeze. So yeah, that was lucky. And then finally is the Gothitelle. It uses its ability Frisk just to say I have a Lucky Egg, which really doesn't do anything for it. So I just keep spamming Ice Beam, I get another Clutch Freeze, and then a full Restore thawed it out. Really? Oh well, I just go for Return afterwards, and then I finish off Caitlyn. Okay, Martial might be difficult for Kyurem because Kyurem does not have a Mold Breaker ability clone, so the Sock will actually have Sturdy. Plus I am weak to Rock. On Martial's throw, I go for Dragon Pulse and it doesn't knock it out. Luckily it misses Rock Tomb. Martial uses a full restore, but luckily 2 more Dragon Pulses knock it out once it finally stops using full restores. I mean, that's fine though, just don't use them on Sock. Next up is his Sock. I go for Ice Beam, Sturdy activates, it hits Stone Edge, and it didn't really do that much because of my higher level. I honestly thought that was going to do more. If I was using something that was 4 times weak to Rock, like Volcarona or Charizard, they would definitely suffer quite hard from this fight. And then I level up to level 64, I get the chance to learn Imprison again, I ignore it, and then on the Mienshao, I go for Ice Beam. Luckily it doesn't live because I'm pretty sure that thing has high jump kick. So then when that thing is defeated, now all 3 of our contenders have beaten the Elite Four. I'm not going to take a look at splits yet because I don't want to take splits for this section. I want to take a split after I beat Getsus, which is pretty much the final time. So now, sticking with Reshiram, I'm going to talk about how the final N and Getsus battle goes. I watched this cool N's Castle cutscene. I'm really looking forward to see how this will look when the black and white remakes eventually come out. And I don't care what people say if they're not looking forward to it because of how BDSP went. Guess what? I'm gonna defend this. I enjoyed those games. They were actually good remakes. Go fight me in the comments, I dare you. And then as soon as the cutscene is over, I enter N's castle, the gym leaders take on the sages, and then I can go into this room right here where N's caretakers will heal my team for me. In N's bedroom, there is a free rare candy which I can use for the last minute if I want to. And then I can head to the top of N's castle and enter the throne room. And at this point, Zekrom enters the room, and then Reshiram wakes up from the Lightstone. So after I catch this thing and put it in the PC, I'll be forced to immediately fight N and then fight Getsus, so I save here. You may notice my moveset has an overhaul. I have Shadow Ball, Dragon Pulse, Fusion Flare, and Focus Blast. So I use the Master Ball on the inferior Reshiram, I put it in the PC, so now we can fight N. N and Getsus are the two hardest fights in this run, so let's see how they go. N leads off with his level 52 Zekrom. I outspeed and go for Dragon Pulse, knocking it out in one shot. Alright, so far so good, but Zekrom's usually not the toughest thing he has. The Carracosta though is a problem. I go for Dragon Pulse and it goes down in one hit thanks to a crit. Luckily, due to Turbo Blaze, Sturdy does not activate, which is good because that thing has Stone Edge and Aqua Jet. So yeah, that would be a problem. And then the following Archeops goes down. Next up is the Kling Klang. I switch on over to Fusion Flare, knocking it down in one single hit, as well as the Vanillux. And then finally is his Zoroark. Fun fact, in the original Black and White, you could only obtain this thing through an event. It wasn't until Black 2 and White 2 they straight up give you this Pokemon. And then during the end fight, I level up to level 64, say no to Imprison, and then right afterwards, N has a bit of dialogue, so now I have to immediately fight Getsus. Here's another thing though, if I lose to this Getsus fight, I would have to fight N over again, but unlike the whole Cyrus battle in Diamond and Pearl on Spear Pillar, I can black out and come back and do Getsus, so I won't have to do N again. But that takes a lot of time, so it would be faster if I just don't reset. Getsus leads off with a level 52 Cofagrigus. On the Cofagrigus, I use Shadow Ball for the one-shot. This was the main reason I got Shadow Ball, so that way I didn't have to equip a Pecha Berry to avoid Toxic. Then on the Bouffalant, this is what I got Focus Blast for. This was to guarantee the one-shot. Next up is Seismitoad. I switch on over to Dragon Pulse. It lives in low health, and then Seismitoad sets up Rain Dance, so now my Fusion Flare won't do as much damage. And then Getsus uses a full restore, Dragon Pulse leaves it at low health again, and then a second Dragon Pulse knocks it out. Next up is the Bisharp. I hope despite the rain being up, Flamethrower will still do much. Oh, never mind, I actually use Focus Blast. Focus Blast does 4 times damage to it. Next up is the Hydreigon, and if you're asking, no, it does not have Frustration at 0 Friendship. That was Black 2 and White 2. And then finally is his Electros. One of my favorite Unova Pokemon, by the way. I knock it out in one hit, and Reshiram has beaten Pokemon Black with a split time of 2 hours, 21 minutes, and 51 seconds, with one reset at level 64, and a game time of 4 hours and 38 minutes. Alright, let's see how Zekrom does at the final end fight. I enter the end battle without a moveset overhaul. I have the same moves of Shadow Claw, Dragon Claw, Return, and Fusion Bolt. Hey, check it out, it's Zekrom on Zekrom. Let's see which one is better. I outspeed and go for Dragon Claw, doing the one shot. Clearly my Zekrom is better. Next up, he sends in his Vanillux right away. I switch on over to Fusion Bolt, which does the one shot. Alright, so far so good. The Archeops I'm not worried about because it is weak to electric. Although if it is able to get a hit on me, Archeops has insane attack. Next up is the Kling Klang. I continue with Fusion Bolt because Steel does not resist electric. You may think it does, but it doesn't. Next up is the Zoroark. I switch on over to Return. I don't know what I was thinking. I should have just kept spamming Fusion Bolt. Oh well. And then finally is the Carracosta. Luckily, this thing will go down to one Fusion Bolt, and due to my Terravolt ability, Sturdy does not activate, and I defeat N. Alright, time for Getsus. Hopefully Shadow Claw will be enough to take down the Cofagrigus. It does not. It leaves it in red health, and then the Cofagrigus poisons me with Toxic, but that's what the Pecha Berry is for. I was given these Pecha Berries so early in the run from Charon, and I used one of them for Getsus, because I knew his Cofagrigus wasn't going to be a one-shot. And then on the Bouffalante, I knock it out with Fusion Bolt. And then next up is the Seismitoad. Luckily, I don't misclick and use the electric move, and then I knock it out with one Dragon Claw. And then next up is his Hydreigon. Obviously, a super effective Dragon Claw is going to take it out. And then next up is his Bisharp. I go for Fusion Bolt, doing the job. And then last up is his Electros. I switch on over to Dragon Claw, get the one-shot, and then Zekrom has beaten Pokemon Black with a split time of 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 7 seconds. With 9 resets at level 66, and a game time of 4 hours and 20 minutes. Nice. Alright, now let's check out Kyurem. Kyurem, unfortunately, will have to deal with Sturdy from Caracosta since its ability is Pressure. I do have the Pecha Berry equipped just for the Cofagrigus, but I have to carry it through the end fight. Luckily, none of Vent's Pokemon can poison you. Anyway, I don't have to worry about the Zekrom because the Zekrom is weak to Ice, so one Ice Beam destroys it. And second up is the Klinklang. It may look like the Klinklang, but watch, it goes down to one Ice Beam. It was actually the Zoroark. So yeah, next up is the Caracosta. I switch on over to Dragon Pulse, it activates Sturdy, it goes for Stone Edge, doing almost half of my health. So yeah, 65 was just the right amount of HP. And then N uses a full restore, it activates the Sturdy again, but luckily I outspeed it, so one Dragon Pulse takes care of it. And then on the Archeops, I can outspeed and go for Ice Beam. Although I misclick and go for Return, Archeops hits me with Stone Edge, and I actually get my first reset with Kyurem. Dude, I could have had a no reset run, that was a stupid mistake. On the next attempt, I get past the Caracosta with less than half of my health from that Stone Edge. I actually go for Ice Beam on the Archeops this time, and I can move on. And then next up is the Vanillix. I go for Return. It does most of its health, but it still lives. And then with the Hail up, it activates Ice Body, so the Vanillix is slowly healing HP. Luckily, I do not take Hail damage because I am an Ice type. And then I knock out the Klinklang, and then that's the end of N's team. Now for Getsus. I have the Pecha Berry for this fight, but can I take out the Cofagrigus with Shadow Ball? I do not. It lives in red health, goes for Toxic, and then the Pecha Berry heals off the poison. I level up to level 66. Next up, he sends out his Hydreigon, which is clearly asking for an Ice Beam. I just hope, though, when the Black and White remakes come out, there are going to be Fairy types in the game. I just hope they give Hydreigon a poison move or something to counter it, but I'm not sure the vanilla Unova Dex has Fairy types. Oh wait, no, it does. Whimsicott's one of them. I just hope they give it a poison type move. Like with BDSP, they gave Cynthia's Garchomp Poison Jab to deal with Fairy types. I hope they do something like that. Anyway, as I'm rambling on, I'm at 47 HP on Getsus as I head into his last Pokemon, the Electros. Luckily, I outspeed it. I go for Ice Beam. The Electros lives at like 1 or 2 HP. It hits me with Flamethrower, and then I live at 9 hit points left. And then I knock it out with one more Ice Beam. Oh my god. Kyurem has had a lot of close calls this run. And Kyurem has beaten Pokemon Black with a split time of 2 hours, 10 minutes, and 41 seconds, with a single reset at level 66, and a game time of 4 hours and 18 minutes. So yeah, Kyurem is the clear winner of this race. It could have gotten a sub 210 time if it wasn't for that one misplay on N's Archeops. Zekrom is only 4 minutes behind despite the massive disadvantage of Clay. You know, I think if I had planned Clay better, to where I can get a first try Clay almost every time, I theoretically could have been extremely competitive with Kyurem, possibly take first place. But Reshiram, I think even if I clear up all the mistakes it made, I'm not sure those mistakes I did cost 11 minutes of time. So I think even if I played Reshiram perfectly, it would not have gotten first place. So even though Reshiram's my favorite of the three, I'm just going to have to deal with this result. But if we take a look at our leaderboard, Scizor was the previous first place contender thanks to having Technician and a priority stab bullet punch, but both Zekrom and Kyurem have beaten Scizor on the leaderboard. Kyurem gets first place overall, Zekrom gets second place, And Reshiram still did pretty darn good. It gets 4th place on the leaderboard. It did better than Nidoking, Charizard, and Volcarona. So yeah, all 3 of our contenders still played pretty darn good, I'd say. Although Zekrom definitely struggled with Clay, Reshiram just had a bunch of player error. I mean, Kyurem had 1 instance of player error. Like, Kyurem was the close to being perfect. This is probably going to be one of the shorter versus races for December, just because Black version just does not have many eventful things going on for it. But the next game we are doing definitely will. The last versus video of December, which will come out December 31st, will be Pokemon White version 2 with the Unova starters, Serperior, Emboar, and Samurott. Also, this will be in challenge mode, by the way. So yeah, every single battle is gonna be hard. So yeah, can't wait to see how that goes. I hope you are excited too. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more, and be sure to follow my socials or support me on Patreon or YouTube memberships. Links are down below. Also, the 31st will be the White version 2 run. I'm hoping by the 3rd of January, I can release the Yellow Randomizer Community Race video. I haven't gotten to work on it yet, but it's going to be a big project. I hope y'all look forward to it. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next one.